Oh,
Terrific job too. She's
right, sitting over here, I have to leave at 5:30, so I'm, all right, you know. Get rest for tomorrow.
Francine says she's trying to get in.
You got a big day, lots of doing things happening here.
Ah, yeah, it's right on time.
Peter, how are you?
I haven't seen you forever.
Well, you weren't here last time.
I know, I wasn't here, that was my fault.
I was.
I know.
No, it's been 2 times.
Yeah, Francine's on.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
But no picture.
I can't see
I
it.
have a problem getting picture in here. Oh, there she
There
is.
you go.
Oh, good,
We
okay.
can see you.
Hi.
It really should just be the power button. I should be able to do this, but
Did you just shut off your camera?
You just disappeared. Francine, are you there?
I'm here, yeah.
Okay, your picture just
I can
disappeared.
see you guys and I can see my face, so I know that,
Okay, we can't see you.
We'll just listen.
What is it?
okay, it's fine. I don't look that great anyway, so.
That is
She's
so.
here, she's there, she's gone.
Wow, that's crazy.
I have no idea about Ant, and obviously did it again. Yeah, 4. And Michael should be here. I'm surprised he's not. Yeah. Give him a few more minutes.
What about Erin? She's not coming.
Erin is around. I think she's not. Erin and I just had
I haven't heard from Erin.
45-minute conversation with the lady who's doing the research for the Guilford Savings Bank to get money for affordable housing. Oh,
Oh.
I sent that around before.
What kind of research? I'm sorry.
Well, it's I wouldn't say it's competitive exactly, but they have a certain amount of money they've set aside. And so they asked this research company to come and do a report after interviewing people as to what we might think about using money for, how can we help them? And it's a standard thing that applies to every city from New York City on down. So there's things like, how are you planning to help your minority community learn to be able to bank and stuff like that.
Yeah, I know Habitat does that. Like, if you're gonna apply for a Habitat, you have to come in and do a bunch of stuff, like, you gotta learn how to
One of the
do-
questions she asked is there anything, and is it possible that we have in youth family services, services like that where we teach people how to deal with the current, the current world?
I know that the United Way does.
They have a
They
regular
have a
program?
program, yeah, United Way does it, and, I know that Habitat does it if you're, I don't know whether it's if you apply or whether you're chosen. You have to come
Okay.
in and do some, like, financial.
Did
counseling.
any of you watch NBC Nightly News last night?
No.
Okay, so maybe you can pull this up on YouTube. Google affordable housing, Arkansas, NBC News. They did a piece and I said to myself, while I was watching it, I wanted to tell people, you guys, but I just Googled it and there's the thing. It's So basically it was talking about public school, the housing crisis in Arkansas and how apparently this is a place where there's a lot of companies going or something. So all these people have come in and bought houses and it's so expensive and people can't afford and so they're talking about how their school population has grown because of all these new incoming companies. And it featured this particular company that off the top of my head, I wasn't prepared to be making notes. We were just watching the news. The company that decided to build, it's a huge project, huge. And it's going to have, and they talked about some of it being geared to the teachers. That is one of the thrusts of it is that they, have all these kids in school now. But anyway, it was a company that their name started with an X, and I don't know if they're a nonprofit. I wasn't quite sure. Anyway, if it's worth watching, it was really interesting, and it's a massive project, huge, that they're building this affordable housing in, and it talked about 50% of, like at 50%. The one thing that the guy mentioned is the 50% threshold as opposed to 80. I don't know what their rules are in Arkansas, but anyway, it was pretty interesting. In Arkansas, no, by the way.
So there was,
It was just a segment, in their news program last night.
well, there was an article in the Times about a global issue with housing in Spain. And what they have decided to do is they are outlawing Airbnbs. Because they,
Interesting.
yeah, they're making them illegal because they have just sucked up all of the housing, well, a good portion of the housing as one of those issues. And they said there's not enough housing for families. So it's not just here. Right?
Yeah.
Kind of interesting.
But anyway, I thought this piece was interesting, and like I said, I didn't have anything to write anything down. And I just thought it was pretty fascinating because it's pretty big. It was a big thing that they're doing. I forget the number that he had on it, like how many millions it was costing to build. And he did say that it was a conglomeration of funding sources, but it wasn't an in-depth thing, it was just a 3-minute segment.
There's television.
We'll have to take a look at it.
It is, well, there's a lot of things happening around the country. It's, I mentioned the one in East Hampton where local citizens are raising money to buy affordable housing, create affordable housing, without the town supporting it.
Yeah.
So, there's a number of things that can be done, and I think that's.
I mean, I'd love to say, just as an aside, I understand the appeal of saying we want to try and have a place for our people that work here to live. The problem I have with that, just as my own opinion, is okay, first of all, I don't know what the legality is of building housing for teachers only. And what happens if the person no longer is a teacher? Do they have to leave their apartment then? And who monitors that? So I think that for me, those make issues that make things more complicated than they need to be. If we're just trying to accommodate the affordability part, the financial part, I think that's an easier thing to monitor. But if somebody leaves a job, then what's the consequence? Do they have to leave the building if the building is only supposed to be for those people in that job? And I don't even know if legally that's allowed, but they did feature one of the problems was that they had this influx of students and now teachers are living far away.
It's a company town concept. I mean, it's a company town concept. So yes,
Yeah.
I mean, if you are here as an employee of the town and that's how you were able to get the apartment, then you leave the employment, then you no longer have the subsidized housing.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything illegal about that. I mean,
Kind of
that's a contract you sign when you sign up. That's your lease says.
Yeah, if it does that, yeah.
Yeah,
That's what they do with college professors, actually.
sure.
A lot of them live in subsidized housing.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
once they're gone.
Same thing on the military.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's their
And then
job.
is that how they regulate it? That every year you sign a lease, and if every year you're not in that job, then you have to move?
Oh, you could do it by every year. Most leases, I mean, usually the leases are 1 year, sometimes they're 2 years, but basically it's the same kind of idea.
Well, and for the current of affordable housing or current, like Concord Meadows, they have to do a redetermination every year. They have to go back through.
With everybody, that's right.
Yes, and verify their income and their assets.
Yeah, you would have to do it every year, because if it was like an employment thing and then you give somebody a 2 or 3 year lease, and for 2 of the 3 years, they're not being a teacher anymore or whatever the employment.
Every year, and a number of the things that I went through, all those websites that are listed in the housing trust fund thing, there is workplace shows up in a couple of places, and in fact, in the case, hey, Michael, you made it. You stuck on the highway, and I saw the highway traffic, so I know. But I think if you, in the case of Greenwich, they actually separate the two. They have a housing plan for affordable housing under 830G, and then they have a separate plan for affordable housing workforce housing. But they can afford it. So, yeah.
It has to unplug. I didn't want to unplug it and mess up the.
Here comes our tech expert.
Is Francine on?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, I'm here.
Francine, I'm just gonna unplug it real quick, but
Okay.
on.
Does it just need a reset?
You'll reset, unplug, plug in.
That's exactly what IT says. Just unplug it. Okay.
My father always believed if you hit it.
Do you guys have that over now? No, we're
You don't
not-
do it?
We're not.
What?
included.
What don't we do? Oh, you guys are doing tomorrow morning? I figured that's what it was.
Yeah.
But no, we don't, unless there's a surprise
I
arrival.
think you have to be told.
Do we have to be told?
You guys have to be told.
Well, this year because people don't. So.
Peter, you want to do this again?
Me?
Yeah, sure.
You can hear us now,
Francine?
Francine?
I can hear you.
You're fine. You were cutting out. We heard your voice, but not your face.
Yeah, it would go dark, and then you'd be there, and you'd go dark.
Okay, the meeting is called to order at 12 PM. And Michael is coming. First order of business, the approval of minutes of May 7th. Any corrections, additions to the minutes? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. There doesn't appear to be anybody here from the public, so we're just going to deal with that. And Francine, why don't you just talk about what we're doing with the town-owned property, so the first order of business.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I'm saying to asking Jane if she would talk about the town-owned properties. We have a meeting tomorrow. So
Okay, yeah, so, Francine and I had put together, the short list of parcels after we got in our car and rode around and figured out which ones were flood zones, which ones weren't. And our list consisted of, 11 addresses, and then one more was added on, because Peggy had suggested that we look at the youth and family building over near Town Green. And I have some comments with each of them. What I plan on doing is cross-referencing these parcels with the ad hoc facilities committee interim report. I don't know if you looked at that, Francine. I noticed there were a couple that they had mentioned.
Yeah.
Clearing to me that I was like, those are parcels we liked. So,
Yeah, they did. Yeah, the schools and there was some thing, I recognized stuff that we had looked at too. And they didn't give a, huge description, but I could figure it out by the address and stuff.
I think I'm gonna cross-reference this tomorrow morning. And then, Peter Anderson and maybe, Dave Kademus, will be meeting with me and Mark tomorrow. Francine, you're welcome to join if you're.
Yeah, I told Mark, I talked to Jane earlier. I said, I'm pretty sure I could come tomorrow. So if you don't have, if you got something else to do, I feel better. I mean, just,
Sure.
it's not a big secret. I had some surgery yesterday, so, I'm okay. I'm gonna be fine, but I was diagnosed with breast cancer. It's gonna be fine. But anyway, but I think I can go tomorrow. So Mark, if you have other things to do, but I can meet Jane at 12.
I'll be there, so don't worry about
Okay.
it. That's not, I mean. we
Tell me
can-
again who you're gonna meet with.
Overwhelming.
Tell me again who you're going to meet with.
Peter Anderson, and he is the director of facilities, and Dave Kademus, who is the chair of the facilities committee. I think he's the chair.
He is the chair.
Yeah,
Okay, and I think Dave's coming. I don't know. He hasn't responded. I'm just assuming that he may or he's going to be there.
Spell his name.
Kadimus.
KADAMUS. 2 A's.
Got it.
So, we're gonna sit down with them and basically, I'm gonna provide them with what I cross-referenced tomorrow morning, and I'll give you guys a copy of that as we're walking into the meeting. And then just say, basically, we want to develop a game plan as to how we can support their effort and how they can support our effort, with regard to making recommendations of which parcels are best suited for residential occupancy eventually in the future. And then, see if we can sort of develop some sort of common ground for communication on this. And just, see next steps, how they would like to handle it and what's convenient for us. I think we're flexible. I think they're probably flexible too. But just to get the ball rolling.
Okay, so I guess the idea is though to eventually consolidate this into a list which we can then use.
Yep.
And a quick question.
Yeah.
I mean, one, I think it's a great idea. I think we should all work in the city, at least start off the idea that we're all gonna work together on this. And I think that's a great idea. Question about planning and zoning, because obviously different parcels might make sense from the facilities committee saying, we see these as, quote unquote, sites that could be used for alternative purposes. We might say, these are sites that work, for alternative purposes for our committee. Where is planning and zoning in all of that? Because
They're really, first of all, they're going through their whole revise of the plans, so. I think they just hired, or actually, an RFP for a person to be the consultant, so they haven't even started in the real work. They had those meetings, public meetings, and that's it. So I think at this point, keeping Carol involved in this, and so she knows what's going on, is a good thing, but I don't think they have any role at this point in what we're doing here. What we're doing here is saying, okay, there is a whole bunch of land that's owned by the town, some of which could be used for residential development, and we think that some of it should be used for affordable housing. So that's bringing in the town facilities director, the facilities committee, and maybe the town engineer at some point. We'll see what happens. But I think it's working together, as you say, that's the. But I don't think P and Z is really involved.
Well, and you might find that the facilities committee has looked at some of those things before they put the properties on the list, right? I don't know what their criteria was, so that would be an interesting question to ask them when you meet with them tomorrow, whether there was any criteria for the properties to make the list, and whether they took a look at P and Z with different zoning rules and regulations related to.
I mean, I guess what I would say is that it's, I don't think they're related, if you want my opinion. I mean, I think identifying town-owned land and having them looked at as far as how they might meet physical criteria, whatever that is, water, infrastructure, blah, blah, blah. I think that's separate and apart from what the zoning restrictions may or may not be.
At this point.
So the zoning people are out of it, and they'll be
Okay.
That's later. I mean, facilities committee there, I don't know. I thought what their point was, is they're trying to take a look at all the town-owned land and figure out where are services being duplicated, or how can we be more efficient, or buses are 4 miles away from town, can we bring, that's what they're doing. And we're in charge of affordable housing, and people, yes, planning and zoning, it relates eventually, but identifying town parcels that what are we doing with them, and are they suitable for housing? I think it's a separate and apart discussion than whether or not it's zoned. That comes later.
But in their report, they identified certain places as.
Yes.
As
Mhm.
probably suitable for residents.
Yes, but I don't think they're looking at it from a zoning perspective, facilities committee. They're looking at it from the way where it is, the access, this, that, the same things that we want to get to.
Yeah,
But to Heather's point, since they have a view of this from an engineering standpoint as well as an operational standpoint, so they're looking at the topography. They also have costs for maintenance of any piece of land, whether it means mowing the grass or maintaining buildings on it. So they've dug deeper than.
But not for zoning, not as it's zoned. They're looking at all that other stuff.
Zoning will come after the fact.
Yeah.
And they do have some strong opinions about some of the schools that are going to be emptied out at year end. So, so we just want to sit down and say, okay, what are your thought process? Let's see where we see the overlap, and then going forward, plus Francine and I were talking the other day, they have more information than we have. So we would defer to their, what they think is best. I think the thing that's gonna be the rub in all of this, okay, they might say, hey, these 6 or 10 parcels are good for housing. The rub's gonna be what type of housing? That's when we're gonna get down to brass tacks.
But we have to get to that point first
Yeah.
before we
Yeah.
can talk about that.
Yeah.
So.
So.
we will. Anything else? Any more, Jane? Okay, Francine, anything more to say on this one?
No.
Okay, let's talk about, I met with Michael last week, and we were looking at the whole communications that we started out and had a couple of small meetings. We had a large public meeting, we had another online public meeting. And one of the concerns that I expressed to Michael, obviously, whatever his opinion is, but we've been talking to the converted. People that have showed up, for the most part, we have not, other than the Knights of Columbus for poor Anthony. But for exception, without exception, all the other meetings we've had are people who said, yay, you know, good idea, good idea. Now, of course, until you get down to the, is it gonna be in my backyard, you know, that creates another situation. We're far from that. But the question is, what kind of communications should we be doing? Because essentially, a year ago now, we abandoned public communication. We did 2 newsletters, 2 copies of the newsletter. We read them, you know, online. They're in the town website. We did have those meetings. We did try that. Francine put together the FAQs, which were also on the website. But again, very little feedback that actually might help us try to understand where the issues are in the town if we were to go ahead with that. So for example, and this is just for example, we were to decide after these meetings we decide there's a piece of land that looks like a perfect place to put this. Should we be, or would we be able to go as Guilford did and say, okay, we have the land, here it is. We want somebody to come in there and bid on this and tell us how much what they can build and how much it's going to cost to build it. And essentially turn it around and make it the other way rather than what we do now in the town, which is wait for a developer to come to us and say, you know, we'd like to build some buildings, and then we negotiate or not negotiate. So the question is, what do we do? Now, one of the things that might be one of the
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm playing from behind here, right? Because I'm still learning, you know, what you guys have done already. And I did watch before I joined the committee, I watched the recording of the town hall that you had. And I guess my view is that we have to know what it is that we want to communicate before we just get people together to talk about affordable housing. I think it's very valuable early on in the process to maybe have an open forum and let people talk and get ideas. But I think, you guys have put in a lot of work last year. And whether it's identifying the idea of identifying town property that might be valuable for affordable housing, check, and saying that maybe we should have a housing trust fund and the work that's been gone into that. Check it. Like, I think there's been a lot of work done, and we've heard from at least a number of people in a variety of forums what some of the ideas are. But I don't think we really should go out and communicate until we have a clear message of what it is that we're trying to do. What are the 3 options? How do they work? I just think meeting to just hear what people have to say or communicating without really leading the conversation. So I would love us to, and I think what Mark and I talked about was, do you do an article in the Source? Do you have an article in, the Shoreline News? I mean, we have a lot of different media opportunities to reach out to people, but I'm concerned that if we don't really have a clear path of the options that are out there that we're thinking about and we want to hear from people, it's just going to fall on deaf ears.
I have a couple of observations. Let's go back to what Mark said. The people who we've had meetings, and the people who have attended are those people who are interested in affordable housing, and it would probably benefit their cohort. Okay, so that's number one. What we have not done is we have not been proactive. We've had, you're like, okay, come to our town website. Oh, read our FAQs. Come and read our minutes. No, we have not been proactive, with the exception of those 3 meetings, okay, where we held, in town campus, meetings in these offices, where the public came. We need to educate the people of Madison, what is affordable? I'm gonna guess that 50% of the population of this town has not really, they might kind of know what it is because they hear about it in the news, but they don't know what it means for Madison. That's number one. So we need to explain to them that we have an affordable housing plan. We need to distill it down into digestible snippets, and we need to take a megaphone and go out there. And that means going to where people are. In my opinion, we should be at library events where there's moms and toddlers, or there's something going on there. We should ask the library people to have us as part of an event where we are experts and we can sort of engage directly with the public. We should be down at the surf club, when Memorial Day things open up, and we should be. It's kind of like campaigning. We should be campaigning about and educating about what the topic is. I think once we do that, then people will get interested, and we could start saying, hey, this is the process that we're thinking about here. Right now, people don't even know what the process is right here. And quite honestly, they don't have time. They work, they come home, they have their dinner, they have their kids. They're not attending meetings like this at 4:00. That's why we never have anybody here. We have to go where they are on their schedule. Memorial Day parade, I don't know, like set up a stand downtown or
Before
something.
housing committees.
Just like, we need to develop content.
I was just gonna say, we have no budget. As I'm listening, I'm thinking, but you gotta give them something, like a pamphlet or something, or our FAQs printed out, like who's gonna pay for that?
Well,
We can find out who can pay for it, but we shouldn't
Yeah.
say don't do it because.
Oh, no, I meant, I agree, but you gotta hand them something, I think, don't you think?
Yeah, usually those tabling events, there's a brochure, there's chapstick, there's sunglasses, there's all that stuff.
You could do something with a QR code, like a small postcard or something with a QR
Yeah.
code that would lead back to your website with information on that.
So that's number one. I think there's like a low level of awareness in this town about affordable housing. And number two, then we can say, we develop some more content. Francine went and put together a FAQ list. We have the affordable housing plan. We should become more articulate in an elevator speech. If somebody comes up to us and says, what is your committee working on? So we need kind of like that elevator speech. It's the communication aspect. We need to sort of lay that foundation, and then we need to go out there and meet people and shake hands and all of that stuff. And then as time goes on, people now understand that there's an affordable housing committee. I think we can insert ourselves into other areas of community engagement where we might have a certain topic that comes up. Like, I don't know what the rules are with regard to land parcels, but we might want to say, hey, you know what? Hey, affordable housing has all of these interesting aspects, and the town can actually create rules around who's in that affordable housing, et cetera, et cetera. So, there's a lot to talk about, but we haven't engaged enough. We've had 3 meetings, and we have, I swear, almost the same age group that comes to every meeting. It's always the people that don't have kids that are coming in here that, quite honestly are interested in, affordable housing because maybe it could benefit them or their relatives. But I feel like it's the same cohort. I'd like to see some young people who are, working in the town that are making 40 or 50 grand that are like, wow, wouldn't it be great if I could get an apartment, something like that. So that's my thought process. And we talked about this. We need to develop more content. And I think that we need to, we need a sort of an outline for that and a calendar. Okay, you know what? There's going to be an event every 2 months or something that we're going to insert ourselves into.
When is the budget cycle for the town?
We just
We just voted on it.
We just did.
Yeah, it was
So
when
we
you
have
were
to
ill.
wait a year if we were to propose and solicit and put together a proposal to be budgeted, to give us a little money to work with. We can't even print a brochure. I mean, we have nothing to give away because we can't afford the
Well,
principal.
we haven't asked for any money, but
We
I,
haven't asked for any, but
I think that in
but
terms
I
of,
think we gotta do that.
I think within a, these relatively small amount of money is discretionary, and I think that the board of selectmen can give us.
Could do
Yeah, so the budget stuff has to be in December. That's when, and then they go through all of their
Yes.
machinations with,
For
Board of
months.
Selectmen, Board of Finance, back to Board of Selectmen, Board of Ed, all of that. But it's a December date when it starts. And then it ends in May with the
But I've
referendum.
never seen a budget that doesn't give the executive some discretionary money.
Yeah, I'm sure they have money sitting around. I mean, we talked about having an article in the papers, I think like in meeting 2 years ago. We just never did it.
And that's something that doesn't cost money.
Actually, it's good because actually at that point, one of the problems was the source didn't have anybody on staff.
Right, now it does.
Now they do.
Okay.
On staff, and I did have a coffee with him about 2 months ago. And he's interested in learning more, but he didn't want, I told him we didn't want a story right then. We were not ready to have something in the paper.
I mean, because I think that what Jane is saying, I agree totally. But I would love to have one of the sources soon in the front page about affordable housing. I mean, there's like we just said, there's barely a day that goes by that there's not an article in a newspaper or a news story about housing all across the country. So it wouldn't be any big shock, but that'd be a huge advertisement that the fact that we're here, trying to work on the thing. We're talking about where to be. I mean, we could set up a table outside Stop and Shop once. Everybody else has a table outside Stop and Shop. There's just one the other day.
Cookies, sell cookies, I
Right,
wanna
for
raise
the
some money.
housing trust fund.
Sorry, the town won't give us
Yeah.
any money, but would you buy some cookies from us?
Yes, but would you buy some cookies? No, I meant to like say, here we are. Here's some, I would love to give people copies of the plan if they would read. I mean, I don't know, but whatever.
I think the idea of a brochure that summarizes a lot
Or
of.
yeah, a summary of the plan, yeah. Yeah.
That's a start right
Yeah,
I agree.
I know I missed last week or the last meeting we had, but I had seen after you presented, Mark, which was a great presentation, some social media talk. Did anybody talk about that last week?
we did not. No, we left the meeting and talking about communications with this.
Oh, okay.
We really didn't get into it.
I had just seen some people on social media talking about, if anybody had seen the affordable housing presentation on,
Yeah.
virtually or with the Board of Selectmen. And, they were talking about, something about taxes and taxpayers and whether or not affordable housing was gonna be a tax burden. And
Well, that
I
does come
felt-
up a lot of times.
Yeah, and I felt like that's a learning.
Yeah.
Were you watching, I can't hear you completely, but are you saying that you watched the video of the meeting we had with the Board of Selectmen when Mark presented?
I did watch it, but what I
And then
was.
and then people were what, on Facebook Madison pages commenting? Is that what,
Yes.
okay, yes, because that was brought up, because that's always the hammer, is that, oh my God, this is gonna raise taxes, because we're gonna have to hire a policeman and a fireman and blah, blah, blah. So is that what they were talking about?
Yes.
Is there a reference to that in our FAQ list
No.
that you know of?
What?
The thing is, it actually could affect taxes, so I mean, you can't go out and say unequivocally, it will not affect your taxes. If the
Yeah.
town decide to give, the Affordable Housing Committee $100,000, that will not be spent on something else, or they have to raise taxes. So I think we have to be kind of careful on that one issue, but it is an issue to deal with, because you say it doesn't necessarily cost anything. I mean, as far as the town is concerned, it does not necessarily affect your taxes. In fact,
Yeah.
because you're going to be able to get people that are, paying some taxes into town. Even if it's an affordable development, there's taxes. Even if it's a tax abatement, there's some taxes that are going to be paid. So it
Right.
actually does generate income, going forward. I think that there are a lot of questions. I mean, I think that at the Board of Selectmen, the idea that we need to hire more cops, we have to figure out how many people are going to live in town in the future. Obviously, that's a red herring. There's no way that we're ever going to be able to sit down. Anybody's going to be able to sit down and say we should have 2,000 more people in town. I mean, it's not going to happen. It's the question is, do you make it possible for 2,000 people to move to town? And they figure it out. And are they, I mean, it's interesting, one of the things I just saw in Westchester County in, that we just put in a senior, only for seniors. And obviously that does not add any school kids if you have seniors. So
Right.
that's one of the possibilities for affordable housing.
But more ambulance.
Or more ambulance, yeah, maybe, and then more cops, because those seniors can get crazy occasionally.
I've heard that,
Yeah,
right, Heather?
yeah, true.
I'll tell you, Bocce Day over at the senior center, you wanna be careful.
It can get pretty wild at lunchtime. I've been over there.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, let's think about it. So let's try to summarize what we were talking about. And so number one is, yes, we should do much more in the way of communicating. Two, we need to think through what we're going to say. And I think maybe what we were talking about just now is the we want to talk about, which is let's put the information that's available and somehow, whether it be begin to start getting it out to people. And I think what Jane said is that we should be going where they are, whether it's maybe sitting in front of the Stop and Shop, which is probably not the best idea. Maybe it is, participating in some of the events. Maybe it is going to the library and seeing if they would like to set up a thing for the young parents that come in there where they have the big kids room. A lot of people are there on a regular basis.
There were a lot of town events on the green in previous years. It kind of pulled back because of COVID. But
Yeah.
but I remember almost every weekend there was one of the local organizations, Chamber of Commerce, had a big one. Some of the churches had those. People walk, there's a lot of people attend those things, and having a table there with the
Yeah.
sign
I think
affordable housing.
I think that's a good idea. I really do.
And give away a brochure which we could print with from the request from the Board of Selectmen for $50,000 or something like that.
I said 5,000.
5,000. As long as it's well done. I don't.
Yeah, Aaron's like, what's going
I
on?
know.
But Peter's reaching for the stars. That's what he.
Well, we have to.
Yeah, I don't
We
think.
gotta get off the dime, so.
We do. And-
Well, you know what? There is a farmer's market every Friday now.
I was gonna say,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
market there's a good turnout at that.
A lot of people go.
But I want to go back to something that Jane said,
Right.
what are we gonna say?
Yeah, exactly.
I actually think, figuring out how we're gonna say it, and maybe I didn't articulate it well when I used the shoreline news as examples. I think some of the examples you gave are better, but more importantly, isn't where we're gonna do it. It's what is the elevator speech? What are we trying
Right.
to communicate?
Right, and I agree, but I think that maybe I misunderstood what you're saying, but I don't think we should be saying, we're gonna build here.
And no, that was my poor
The
articulation.
general thing,
I was just saying, I gave ideas of things that we could do, that might be something we would do, but maybe
Yeah.
to Jane's point, maybe actually start even earlier in the process. What is affordable housing?
well,
What does it mean?
I would say.
Give I mean, maybe you build
We have,
toward that.
yeah, we have an FAQ list, and I would just suggest that we add to that, and we have that everyone reviews it. But to Mark's point that he just made, we should take the affordable housing plan and derive from that a distilled outline and one pager that basically says, based on the research done, blah, 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 and here are the facts. And then we have the FAQs, and then we say, we're on the committee and we're thinking of tactical ways to approach this subject matter and to get some input from the community. So I think that's, and get to know people, because I think that a lot of people probably don't even know this committee exists.
Oh,
But
sure.
Can I just ask one question though, like, is the goal of this effort, and I'm not saying it's not, something to do, but, I also ask myself, why am I doing it? And what am I expected to get out of it? What's the goal? Is the goal that the hope that people become more supportive so that when we do get more aggressive, as it were, and after we try to like distill the parcels down further and further to maybe start to make a suggestion to the Board of Selectmen, that then we're hoping people will be less objecting to it when it becomes public? I mean, what is the goal of putting out this information? As opposed to, by the way, just focusing on, let's find some parcels that we think are appropriate, starting to put some stuff together for the Board of Selectmen on how we might go about organizing a project, bringing in, looking at nonprofits that might be interested, blah, 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 like, because there's two different things. Do you know what I mean? Like, what's the goal of handing out more information to people?
I think the goal is a two-way education process, Francine. So we will get feedback from the community that I'm sure we will learn some facts about. And I also think it's important to have an open, be an open book on the subject matter, because when we do start moving forward and trying to push agendas for certain types of housing, that it's not a surprise, because, you know, people feel like the town is secretive. Okay, my neighbors do anyway. You know, and then they bring this out on us. Well, no secret. We're out here, we're talking, taking input from all sources, not just, you know, senior citizens that want to downsize that keep coming to our meetings. What about, you know, the young people, or thinking about groups of people we haven't even come across, you know, in any of our meetings, and getting their input. I just think that it's, and to bring the idea, to get the support for the idea. And to, you know, because if we don't, then people are going to say we were working in a vacuum, being secretive, and then, you know, oh, now what is this topic of affordable housing if we want to do something, you know, like, that's the last thing we want.
You go back to the very first public session we had. The invitation that we sent out said, Madison is changing. Would you like to help manage that change? And it's really, I think that's the story. I mean, that the town is committed to building affordable housing. The state has asked us to build it to 10%. But I mean, these are facts that whether everybody in the Board of Selectmen feels exactly the same way is irrelevant. Town officially is committed to building more affordable housing under the 830G. And that's something we should tell people, because they don't know that. And I think once you start telling people that this is happening, then, and that we can be there and say, and we are the people who are going to help, you know, please give us your feedback, as Jane is saying, give us your feedback so we actually can help manage that process. And please come to our meetings. I mean, we have a meeting every twice a month, you know, and try to do that. And I think that may be all we need to do at this point, is just make people aware that these things are happening or will be happening. Let's hope. I mean, is that okay with you? I mean,
Yeah.
And I think the idea of a brochure, because a leave behind is in my world of business, you never went to a meeting without a leave behind. You know, you have to let something remember people what you talked about. And I can't imagine it costs very much money to put together a 3-sided folder.
Yeah.
With information. I'm sure they could do it over, you know, Tyco can do it for much less than $5,000. Certainly.
Use CCN for them.
It's gotta be good.
No, I think you can do it.
We have commissioner board support. I have an account for board and commission support.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, discretionary.
So we can get, it is, instead of having individual accounts for each of these boards, we created this overall account. So I can help facilitate that.
Peter wants to answer $50,000.
How much?
It's a 10,000.
10,000.
What are we gonna do?
Are you looking for gold-plated brochures?
No, we're gonna attach a meme coin.
Peter, you can give me the 50,000. I'll just print it. I'll just buy a lot of paper and I'll do it in my house.
It's nowhere near 50.
No, it's not gonna cost you. Let's do that. Anyway, okay, so.
Yeah, we printed through Staples very reasonably, often more reasonable than Tyco.
Is that right? I
Yeah,
don't know the price
so
of
we
it,
can,
really.
yeah, we can play around
Okay,
and see where we get.
so I think I can find I know somebody that can professionally design a piece for us, if we can decide what we want to put in.
The content.
Well, content, yeah, we gotta have content.
But it probably would be a good idea, you know, like, I mean, again, how many of these do we want to print? 100 or 5,000?
I think, well, no, I think,
I mean,
I think we need the
Probably-
content first.
you know,
Yeah, I think, yeah.
That in itself is gonna be a process.
oh, no,
because
I understand,
whoever drafts
I just
has to
want
go through
to
a
know,
list
what are we getting ourselves into
I would say-
on cost?
I would say.
Because it's like, you don't wanna like design this amazing brochure that
No.
we really like,
But I think you had
and
a
then
couple,
realize,
you had a couple hundred, you had a
Well,
couple
you can
hundred
make it
brochures.
digital also, and
Yeah.
that way you can share it
Sure,
digitally
sure.
with folks, not just,
Sure.
you know,
And
you
you
can
can
drop
post it.
some at the library, that kind of.
Yeah.
Senior center, here.
And you can post it on the site too. Yeah, you can post it there. But let's, I mean, how do we, Michael? Would you like to start putting together a contents page for what you think this might look like? I don't think you have to worry about designing, but what are the pieces that we want to include in a leave behind?
okay, should we start with the current fact sheet? that you
Yeah,
guys
no,
have?
Yeah, I was gonna say, could start with the FAQs and compare it to the plan and come up with something brief that puts that information together or something. I could help Michael, maybe, you know.
You mean the FAQs on the website, Francine?
Yeah, we could print that out, you know, I'll print a copy of it out, and then with the plan, between the two, we could just concise it, you know, like just see what was the most informative, easy to read that makes sense, or what that, I don't know, and if people have other ideas of what to put in it,
Francine, you've already done that, though. You
yeah, but,
given them a one pager that I thought was brilliant.
Yeah, but I think we want to do something, I think we want to put it on cardstock.
Oh, I agree,
Pocket-
but
Yeah.
content, we've already
Yeah.
got pretty good content.
All right, well,
I don't think.
And the
everyone's
newsletter.
perfect.
Nancy, you and Michael, would you be you'll be the subcommittee, just at least come as far as
yeah, we
content?
can try to put something together. You know,
Francine, the 2025 numbers came out for AMI, so I'm gonna up
oh,
those numbers.
will you get the person to put it on the website?
Yes,
Yeah, Maddie can update that on the
Okay,
website.
great, thank you,
those
thank you,
came out in May.
So,
Good.
okay.
All right, so then we'll take a look at that, you know, next week in the June meeting. And now everybody received a copy of the draft discussion of the housing trust. And I think, I mean, as a matter of fact, I think, Aaron, I know Peggy has some other feelings about this and how to handle this, but I think we as a group have concluded that this should be done. We should have a housing trust fund that is separate from the town budget, not included as part of even where it might be reserved as it is for large, you know, things buying fire engines or something like that. Which
was that draft with the agenda?
Yeah,
the draft, I sent it to you this morning. I didn't, it wasn't sent until yesterday, so I sent it
I
this
think
morning.
I was on
They-
that.
they-
It's good.
they-
Thank
they
you
made it
for your
something
part.
event,
That was
so-
great. That's brilliant.
Right, no, I mean, I don't think I was on that, email. Thank you.
So basically, I think what this is it's an outline. It's not a final document by any means. And so the question I think is, and I'm directing this to Aaron, but just because you're here, but how do we move forward? I mean, we need to have discussions about this with people who are here, the finance director, for example. And, how this became in terms of internally within the I think the meeting we had yesterday representing the Gilead Savings Bank is interesting because I mentioned to her, you know, one thing you could do if the Savings Bank wanted to give some money to us, the town, to help with affordable housing, a housing trust fund would be a place to put the money. That would be very easy for them. It just goes in there and it goes to the bank. So I think, and that's one of the items that we listed on here as a possible gifts from people, not just, you know.
So is this meant to be a specific recommendation to the town as to how the committee's suggesting you establish a housing trust fund?
In outline, there are a lot of, when you read through this, you'll see a lot of questions, you know, what kind of governance we're gonna have, you know, the trustees, who do they report to, that kind of thing. There's some recommendations, but I do think that if this were to go forward, we really have to, you know, get the interested parties in the town government to be able to sit down with us and say, let's work our way through this and see if we can find something that is compatible with what we think is necessary next step, and how does it fit into the overall town governance.
Yeah.
Some of the towns that you listed already have really nice two-page support for a housing trust fund online. I mean, we can get those easily.
Yeah, but this is in here, I mean, I think we've already agreed.
And you've done a
that
really
housing-
good job. This is great.
I think the housing trust fund is necessary, I think that's what we're including, the housing trust fund is a necessary step. So I don't think we can argue the case that it should be, I mean, I think we could agree on that. It just, how would that be done, and so there needs to be a mechanism to work through the questions and the issues that arise when you start talking about it.
Yeah, I wasn't, so I guess some of my questions are because I wasn't in any of those discussions that were had between members of the committee and Stacy, our finance director, or Peggy, so I don't know what the specific feedback was. I know it wasn't necessarily the route that you were looking for, but
Well, Peter and Jane.
It's hard for me to
Why
hear.
don't you just-
So, the idea is, we feel there's a lot of benefits to setting up a trust. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we want money from the town. There's a lot of other sources we can get resources from that we're becoming aware of. But there's no place to place them. So.
Yeah, I understand that. Is this what you said during your meetings
Yes.
with
Yeah,
that? So
yeah.
this has already been
This, we talked about it, then.
Well,
conveyed
Jane
to
and Peter
Peggy and
met-
Stacy?
Jane
Well,
and Peter
we-
met with Stacy and Peggy, and there was, and that's what so their response was not so much what a bad idea, it was that it should be handled this way as opposed to having a separate organization.
So, Erin, I think you were absent a couple of meetings. Peter and I summarized and put together a PowerPoint that we passed off to Stacy and Peggy. And that was last July. They put us on hold because they wanted to go through the end of year accounting and to get feedback from their outside accounting resource, whoever that might be, that Stacy must work with somebody on the outside. The feedback we got when they said, okay, now we're ready to meet you a second time, that was in December. And the feedback was, we think this might be too complex. We don't have any town resources to help with this. Maybe a special purpose fund is
like a
better.
reserve fund. Yeah.
And what that basically means is that the money can go anywhere. And we want something that's designated for affordable housing. And if we get resources that are given to us that are specifically for affordable housing, they should go into something that it can be held in for affordable housing.
Right.
So
I
there
think
are,
that's an option, right?
so the
Mhm.
idea was,
In a reserve fund.
yeah.
The problem,
Well,
well, good, I'm sorry, Jane, finish.
But the point is, we wanted to say, look, we will help guide this process. We can sit down with the attorney and sit down with examples that we have and craft with the attorney and the town admin what we think the parameters of the fund should be. And that in and of itself, Erin, you probably know, will probably take a couple months, right? Just to do that. But we'd like to get,
That's
Well, okay.
more than.
all right, I'm just saying.
Understood, but a journey of a
we
1,000
want-
miles starts.
Right.
And then with regard to the governance of the fund, there has to be a board that oversees the fund. We think that we can get people who are, professional people who would be happy to help out with overseeing that. We don't feel it would be a big burden for the town. Maybe there's detail that Peggy and Stacy had with regard to that. They did not voice it to Peter and myself when we had the meeting. But we really do feel it is the first step to even managing any assets that we might have access to. Donations, cash, land, loans from banks. Maybe we get a Guilford Savings Bank, maybe they don't give us money, but maybe they say, hey, you know what? For you guys, we're gonna have access to a line of credit for any developer that comes in, and we'll give them, 200 basis points below market or something. We
Perfect
don't know.
stuff.
So that, all of that has to be sort of in one area. And that's what we view the trust as being, something that is for affordable housing, for all of these potential things. Plus, there are, other ideas about how we can bring money in. We were just talking before you came in, we were talking about Airbnb stuff. Well, you know what, maybe there could be Airbnb fees that start to feed into this and it benefits affordable housing. There's any number of things. But if we have nothing to start with, it's kind of like, then it's all over the place.
Party committee?
Well,
This is affordable housing.
Affordable housing.
We need room D, must be this way.
It's down the hall this way,
Oh, great, thank you.
to the left.
Heidi.
I'll see you. Is it the 200
I think.
year planning?
No, that's why, yes, so everybody gives.
The party
Yeah.
committee.
Yeah.
Okay, look at the crowd going in there.
So,
The
I
tree
think-
commission.
That's where I was kind of looking for what the direction that finance, I guess, recommended is like a reserve fund, essentially like the open space fund that is established when in a similar fashion when planning and zoning approves subdivisions, and instead of dedicating physical open space on a property, a developer would pay a fee in lieu of. That goes into a dedicated fund that requires, planning and zoning commission review and prior to any disbursement into, and it has to be open space or acquisition of land in that sense.
Yeah.
So there's like terms as far as how to use that account. I think that's kind of, just my assumption is that that's what she was kind of thinking that would be. I haven't had any conversations with Peggy or Stacy about a housing trust fund. I'm also familiar with how you're describing it, of that dedicated fund, as you've said, some other municipalities that we've learned have
Oh, yeah.
done that successfully.
Absolutely.
There are a couple of practical issues, practical differences between the two. They're just not two sides of the same coin. Because if you have a separate housing trust fund, you can go to the Guilford Savings Bank and say, give us your $10,000 or $50,000 and we'll put it in the trust fund. The town can't do that. The town could go to them presumably and say, well, we have a project that we want you to finance or give us some money for. But you can't, they're not going to give money indiscriminately to the town just to be used in a savings account someplace. Plus, the second thing is that whatever is in that special account can be rated. It can be used for other purposes. Yes, you have to go through some process, but there's nothing to prevent the money that's being put aside in these special accounts to not be used in an emergency or however defined or to whatever. They need to, the next hurricane comes and knocks down the seawall, we need to put a lot of money into rebuilding the seawall. Well, let's forget that, we're gonna put the money we have, we're not gonna raise people's taxes to finance it.
I don't know if it's as easy as that, but
No, there's a process, but there's nothing to say that it can't be used for other purposes.
I think there is the ability to do that. I don't know the specifics of,
Well, I'd be very surprised if it wasn't an ability to do that.
So-
I'm sure.
so I'm assuming then this information, is the support, the reasoning behind it, examples from others and options. So you're looking to open that discussion.
Yeah, and that's exactly where we are. We obviously need to refine this considerably from where it is right now. What this says now is that we recommend that based on, Connecticut statutes, this is what you should be doing. And this is a separate organ, and if you do that, then you do have to have a separate governance. It can't be part of the town, directly part of the town governance. That having been said, certainly town staff can be, and conceivably even totally be the board of directors of this, but it has to be a separate fund. And so that if you some guy wants to leave money to the town, well, the Power Trust, for example, the idea that they gave the land for affordable housing or outdoor recreation. Okay, if somebody wants to come along and say, I'd like to give you my, the Greenwich property to be used for affordable housing, then you've got a place to accept it. The town, it's not gonna go just the town.
Yeah, that's a physical property.
No, but physical
and the
property is also
The
possible,
process
yeah.
is, yes, it's basically through town meeting.
Yeah.
Is that form, so I think any,
But the trust fund would not need to go through a town meeting.
If something's put into a trust, I mean, land can be put into a trust.
I think
Yes.
it's
It can be
trust.
put into a trust. And then it's it's part of the trust.
That's the
but
thing.
it's still the town as the entity.
No, it would not be a
So I
separate.
think that's who,
Right. That's the point. I mean, that's what makes it different than what.
that its own, is it its own nonprofit?
It would be,
That's what we need an attorney, to
well,
start digging into the details of how does that actually work.
Because if
from a
it's the
tax
town accepting it, I would think it has to follow town charter as far as how to.
perspective. Okay.
the town,
But nobody's gonna, I mean, there are many nonprofit trusts. The Madison Land Trust is a nonprofit trust.
It's a
People
private
can-
entity that's not the town, so I
Right,
guess
it's-
that's
it's a
the
private, it's a
question.
nonprofit trust. That's
Yes.
actually what it is.
Yes.
And people can donate money to it.
Sure.
And get
Land,
tax deduction.
Sure.
for it.
Yes,
People can't just give the town of Madison money for housing purposes.
Why not?
People
they
can
could
donate money to this trust.
they can donate, people donate money to the town all the time, accepting,
They can donate money in the town, but they can't restrict I mean, I don't think the town would allow them to say.
sure they
"Give
do.
me-"
Youth and Family accepts donations all the time
That goes
for specific purposes, and then it
It's
goes to the
possible.
board of
I'm sure.
selectmen. and
Okay,
the
all
Board
right.
of
Yeah,
I'm
Finance.
sure it's
Yeah,
possible,
we
but
do.
that's-
We are
that's-
not
that's our-
a 501c3 though.
Right, so
Right.
the person who donates it doesn't get a tax deduction.
No.
Which is a motivator for
Right.
some people to donate money.
Technically, because we're not a 501c3, it's
So they
not.
can't donate,
Right.
so they can't deduct that donation.
But for an example of this, it's Connecticut State has a housing trust fund.
Right,
You
it's a
can donate
separate,
to,
but it's a,
you can donate to get a tax deduction.
right, it's a separate.
So, can I just interject? Can we go back to what Erin first asked? Okay, let's just paint a picture. So we did the presentation and we got, the initial feedback was, oh, okay, let's make a general slush fund. And we walked away, deflated. Okay, so then there was the Board of Selectmen meeting.
Yeah.
And Mark did that outline.
Your update.
Yeah,
Yeah,
update, and with leading on the note that, you know, next steps for us is to have this trust fund developed. So for us to go forward, we would like to create a working group with legal counsel to develop the parameters around this trust and to implement. However, we need the Board of Selectmen to say, yes.
give your blessing for that, right.
Exactly. So back to Mark's question, so we've presented to the Board of Selectmen. Going forward, any thoughts from maybe any of you about how to push that agenda again so that there is the ability to gain the support for us to move forward and to create these working groups?
Remind me again, what was the Board of Selectmen's feedback about the housing trust fund when
Yeah, did they
presented?
comment?
I don't remember.
Only Peggy, and she really didn't comment. She said, well, there's a lot of options.
Okay.
That was
Okay,
a comment, yeah.
so there's not a
Which-
lot of.
Which we agree.
So she
In
didn't
your
ask for
meetings,
this.
though,
Right?
She did not ask you to come up with a.
No, we said we
proposal.
would come up.
And Mark has got a draft of that. I mean,
Yeah.
we just need to convert this into a more legal and
In our
consistent.
our
message.
presentation, we said one of the top items was we would come back
Well,
to
you have to
you
pitch
and
it
create
before you
Okay.
convert.
a plan for a housing trust fund.
All right.
Yeah.
So did you get a hard no? We're
No.
not when you met with Peggy and Stacy, like, they weren't like that, but redirected
It
you?
was hey, we think that
Just
it'll
trying to
be
figure out how much.
easier. It'll be easier.
How much
if we
pushback
just-
you get.
If we did X as opposed to your idea, it would be easier if we did this. And I think, but to the point though, Erin, I think her thought process was, oh geez, you know, I gotta
What a
like,
pain in the ass this is
how
gonna
many
be.
other people do I have to get involved in this? So what we're saying is, we would take the lead. We need to consult with the attorney first, the town attorney or whoever has that skill set here. Sit down and say, okay, what are all the things that need to get done? And then, well, to Mark's point, we would then have to say, okay, and a board would need to be formed to oversee what's happening with the fund and make sure
When
that the
it's
account.
established.
Yes,
Yeah.
but we want to move forward. We don't want to go and then have them say, oh, no, after we've done 6 months worth of work on, just putting the parameters together. No, not a good idea, or no, we're not going to do that. We want the support first.
So do you think this is comprehensive enough to pitch it as a pitch?
I think it is. As I say, as you'll see, as you read through, there's a number of things that we're,
Okay.
how do we do this? How many members do you have on a committee? That's coming. But yes, and the requisite process is right here, which is
So,
this very long citation from Connecticut statutes. I mean, every town has the right to be able to set up separate entities like this.
right, so some of the sources of funding will raise questions.
Of course. Yep.
Zoning fees, surcharges for building fees, short-term rentals. I don't know if any of you lived through that discussion that we've had a couple of years ago
No,
about
we did not,
complaints
yeah.
about short-term rentals. And the board has considered whether or not to regulate those or not. They decided not to.
Right.
You know, so one thing-
Establish
Did they make
that.
an
One thing
affirmative, just say, did they make an affirmative decision not to do it, or they just let it go?
Well,
Did they say,
It
we're not
was-
gonna tax, you're not?
my recollection is that we didn't have enough information to come at this with any full-blown regulations because there isn't enough data to show how many are here currently in town.
Yeah, so that,
Here's my guess. If there was a rule where you would get a license to have an Airbnb, there would be a lot of neighbors coming to you saying, hey, this is an Airbnb, that's an Airbnb, blah, blah, blah. So you go on vacation, I don't know, I do a lot of skiing, okay? And I use Airbnb and VRBO. And I will tell you, when I went out to Vail and I went out to Utah, there's a license as soon as I open the door. This,
Yeah, I have a lot of research on how to regulate it. I mean, we've gone through this. And really, I think the board sort of looked at this as, yes, we have historically been a seasonal community where we do have fluctuations of people coming in and renting their homes. We have not had a lot of complaints. The driving folks who were complaining about it, the neighbor sold the property and I honestly haven't received a complaint about a short-term rental in at least 2 years. So it's very quiet. It's a matter of staffing and how, who is enforcing something like a licensing process and what that.
and this can be,
I was just gonna say that long ago, toward the end of my tenure on planning and zoning, Airbnb was becoming a thing. And we had some discussions about this. And I before you just said what you said, Aaron, what I was gonna say is I think that what the issue is there's no will to really do it because enforcement, what are they gonna do about enforcement? They need to hire, they'd have to have it, they gotta hire some people to oversee this thing. Personally, I think there's a lot of money being left on the table by not doing it. The town it's always looking for money. There's a lot of I live in the part of town where there is a lot of rentals, a lot of people coming and going. And maybe people don't complain, but I can tell you that you're not always happy about it. So,
that really has to do with the fact that they
There's nothing
learned
they can
that
do.
there's nothing.
and by the way, what is complaining, whether people complain or not, what has that got to do with anything? I mean, whether or not people complain has no bearing on whether or not the town wants to make a commitment and have fees.
Let me make one other point, though. I mean, the fact is that Airbnb takes houses out of
Off the market.
yes.
And that is that I think is, so it would be very appropriate to have a licensing fee on Airbnb.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm all for it. I just think the town doesn't want to have to put up with the effort. That's just my opinion of what it would take to establish the infrastructure to manage this.
A lot of money is not on the table. The town wants to leave a lot of money on the table. That's their decision. That's not
Yeah,
our-
I guess so, but
Licensing is more a town
Comments,
thing,
but
licensing is more a town thing than it is an Airbnb thing.
It's more account.
It's,
It would be a
Yes,
town, you have
municipalities.
to have a
Okay.
license through
Oh, yeah.
Madison to do an Airbnb. Airbnb is already getting all their money right online from the person who's leasing their house out.
Right, that's
Um,
their
And
thing.
I will just tell you, just from a real estate perspective, okay, people come up to me and they say, oh, can you get me a rental this summer? I will tell you, each year, it goes down and down and down. Well, where do you think those houses are? They're on VRBO, Airbnb. They don't need agents. They don't need local people anymore. There is no supply for local people, and local people are like, okay, fine, no problem. Other things bigger and better anyway, because, doing a rental is a lot of work. So, very little supply, but there's lots of rentals. So to the point these guys are making, yeah, there's money being left on the table. I'm sure you guys haven't had the resources to try to figure it out, but
There are companies that track, and I've met with them and kind of understood what their product is versus us just kind of monitoring
yeah.
websites. So there's quite a bit of,
So can I bring the conversation back to the housing trust fund?
yeah, I'm just,
I think the thing about the housing trust fund, in and of itself, how it's gonna get funded and whether we put a licensing requirement, I mean, there are many, as I'm sure Jan and Peter are most aware, because you guys have done the work. There are many ways that a housing trust fund would get. One of them might be that we regulate Airbnbs, but the concept of why we want to have one, and the fact that many towns have them, and they've been used successfully. It also, in talking to some people I know in the low-income housing area, it sends a signal to the community in general that the town supports this. It sends a signal to developers, lenders, other people, state legislators. The state of Connecticut legislature might be happy to see that there are more towns taking this seriously. So I think how we ultimately fund it, and I mean, there are a million different conversations to be had. But I still think there's consensus. I mean, am I right that there's consensus among the Affordable Housing Committee that we would like to pursue the Housing Trust Fund? And I think the next step sounds like another, I hate to say it, is maybe another meeting.
The one meeting.
But each meeting, each thousand meetings starts.
Hopefully you get that.
Another meeting with Peggy and whoever is appropriate in the city, because at the
I
Board of
think that's the-
Selectmen, my take, when Mark brought up the Housing Trust Fund, my take from the body language was one or two at least were not excited about it.
That's true.
Right, and one or two were interested in it, but they didn't understand it.
Right.
And so I don't think it's a done deal that we're gonna get this approved.
Yeah.
But I think they did ask for more information, and I think we need to press this. We need to press it.
I think that's fine. I think a good next approach is, I'm happy to reach out to Peggy and say, hey, let's kind of float this idea and talk a little bit more, just
Well, also
a
maybe,
little more informally before going to the full board.
no, I don't want to go to the full board. No, there's a lot of questions before you go to the board. I mean, we want to be able to give the board the package and say, that's it, please say yes or no. But I think.
Well, you're
what I
gonna
would-
wanna go to the board before you do the work to create the language of the trust
I think
with the
I
pitch.
would want to be involved with the first selectman, the lawyer, and state finance. And I think that meeting is the next step, is to have that meeting where we sit down and say, okay, here's what we're proposing. How do we make this happen? And if the town and through whatever spokesperson says, we ain't gonna do this, okay, then that's the message to us. And I'd be very disappointed, because we think this is an essential step in the right direction. But
It's a foundation.
Yeah.
It's a statement of commitment.
Yeah.
It's a I think that we had discussed this a lot last year as Jane and Peter were working on this last year. that I think that we all believed that this was, a commitment, that there's a statement of commitment there, that the town is committed to helping to facilitate. And it's not like this thing's gonna be funded like with millions of dollars or something, but it is a mechanism where money can be put aside that is only for housing, only. Whatever amount it ends up being, or land or anything, but it's a start. It's a start of commitment. It's a.
Mechanism that facilitates affordable housing
Mhm.
in town. And that's, I think the other towns that have started it, I mean, there's a lot of, when in the back of that is all these,
Yeah, there are like
links.
nine other city links.
all these links,
town
and so
links.
if anybody wants to kind of look at what other people are doing, and see what they're doing. And none of, Guilford has one, so they've already done it apparently, at least according to their website, they have.
But they had to, because they created this inclusionary housing
I see, that was the way.
regulation in the zoning code, so they needed to create
The trust fund.
somewhere to
Place
go,
to put the money.
yes.
But it does, in other words, a very similar town has a trust fund. And they do seem to have been able to use that to move ahead. And I would say, emphasizing what Michael said, if there was not even $1 in the trust fund to announce that we have one, that would be a signal, a positive signal. And I don't know what's gonna happen. I mean, as I said, the Guilford Savings Bank, interesting. I would certainly go around and talk to the banks about, how do you support, you should be supporting affordable housing in town. What are you gonna do? How much are you gonna give us? Start with that. But
So
I would have a hard time, going around and saying, please give the town of Madison some money, and they'll, trust me, they'll spend it properly.
You could pinky swear.
You've done the work here already of putting this document that we have. I mean, if it's amended as a proposal for the Board of Selectmen to say yes or no, I think that's the next step. I mean,
Well,
it
you
needs to be,
could, but it has to be agreed to by the people, because if the Board of Selectmen would be presented with this right now, they'd say, this is a half-assed job,
well, I agree with that, of course. I mean, but the only way to get them.
I agree with you. This is a really solid.
Oh, we just fill in some of these blanks. it'd be
Do you
fine.
think this is a starting point, if you wanted to email Peggy or copy me and send her this and say, look, this was the topic of discussion, can I set up a meeting
I would
with
be
you
I would be happy
to
to do that. I did not send it to
talk
Peggy.
this
I did-
through, and it comes
I
from
did send it
you?
to Jen. She was, I sent it to Jen as well as to Heather. So everybody's, it's done. But I will send it to Peggy and ask
To
her.
pick her brain a little bit about it and maybe get some guidance on how to move forward and pitch that way. And then it's more of an informal conversation first, that we can have to kind of,
You'll get the same,
before there's attorney and.
Yes.
but you'll get the same result that we got when we
I
went.
would rather.
We got it.
Well, not necessarily, and I'd like to be a part of that meeting.
I think
Good.
it should be.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
great.
absolutely. Yeah. And I will suggest the attendees of the meeting, as well as suggesting Peggy that this is the next step, is what we would like her to convene this meeting. So,
Yeah, I think
and so we'll see, and it's up to really her to decide.
we can get her feedback.
So, anything more to be added to the housing trust fund issue?
I would just point out, I think, I could be wrong, but under other towns, where at the very end you said GGS, isn't it CGS? Connecticut General Statutes?
CGS, did I just print it wrong? Yeah, okay, I'm sorry.
Just, if we're moving forward with this
That's a good-
document.
That's a good catch.
CGS, I got it on the recommendation, I've got it right, so.
Oh, you do? Oh, okay. Oh, interesting, all right.
Yes, CGS, Connecticut General
Connecticut General
Statute.
Statute.
Yeah,
I just, when I was typing it up, I may have.
I know, right? Your brain is thinking faster than your hands. I prefer
Or
to,
maybe, in my case, a little slower than my hands.
I'm going with
Oh,
faster.
that's a universal excuse. That's a great excuse.
But
Right.
it's true also.
Yeah,
That's the benefit of being true. Okay, I think we're finished with this. The next step on this would be, then I will ask Peggy to convene a meeting with the people that are key to this discussion to go over this and begin to see what the next steps are going to be. And I think that certainly, I think all of us should be welcome to come to that meeting, and certainly Aaron as well.
Great.
All right, that is the last item on the agenda. Is there any other items to be brought up? Any more discussions? If not, the meeting is adjourned at 5:24.
Thank you for doing this. Really. You know, you gotta have some, you can't be afraid to write about it.
Are there any towns that you looked at that really, really liked their housing trust fund?
Yes,
They did
Yeah.
something really strong.
we've talked to them all, and I can list who's the best to talk to.
The different characteristic, the Mansfield, I think, did a very good job. But that's also, so, I mean, that's, you know, it's configuration, so, I mean, the best one probably.
It's just, I can't wear those.
They are, you know, were.
They're just barely off the ground.
Yeah, but no, they have the structure, though, they actually created it, so you can see what they've done.
I go to Stanford. Stanford, that's
Stanford.
easily understood.
Stanford, I